A lot of folks call me Rache or Abby, or all kinds of different names. I play multiple different characters. Right now I'm kitted up as Abby, or Abine Rousseau. She is my ranger, so I don't really have my bow with me at the moment, but yeah, so I get to shoot people. So LARPing is basically live action gaming. So if you can think of Dungeons & Dragons or Skyrim or World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, anything like that, LARPing is basically doing that in real life. So instead of pressing buttons, rolling dice, narrating your actions, you actually go out and do the thing. So if there's, say there's a creek over here. In D&D, for example, you would say I go for a swim, you'd roll some dice and see how you do. In LARPing, you just go jump in the stream and have at it. So there are some major differences in that kind of regard. But overall, it is a community effort, so everybody who is involved in it actually plays a part in making it happen. So it's not one of those things where it just happens for you and you just go and spectate, or you don't have to put any effort into it yourself. Some things to expect. Really, your first night, you're going to feel completely lost and out of it. You're going to feel like you don't belong there. You're going to be surrounded by strangers, and it's just going to be one heck of a time. However, when you actually start talking to people, you start getting involved, you're going to have a lot better of a time, because you're actually going to start making friends, learning rules, understanding how things work, and it's actually going to work out really well. But you're going to have some roleplay moments where you're going to be hanging out in a tavern or meeting just random strangers as you're walking down a path. But you're also going to have fights, at least in most LARPs. Campaign LARPs, you're gonna have those. There's all kinds of different LARPs, and like I said, if you can think of it, there's a LARP of it. But if you think about it, anybody who has ever played House or Cops and Robbers, Cowboys and Indians, anything like that, have LARPed. Because anybody who has done those kinds of things have role-played with somebody else while pretending to be something that they're not. So that's pretty much what LARPing is, because I'm not really a medieval ranger. I'm not really a thief, but my character is. So because of that, I'm role-playing as something that I'm not, and I'm doing it in the presence of others. Your equipment is really going to be dependent upon what kind of LARP you're playing. If you're playing a medieval fantasy LARP, you're going to want to dress something like this. I don't know how well you can see my boots and see my pants and everything else, but you're going to want to have some kind of equipment that's not modern. You're not going to be chastised for dressing in basically like sweatpants and a t-shirt that you kind of converted into looking like a tunic. Especially not your first time around. A lot of people are very concerned about that kind of stuff. I promise it's not the case. Because everybody wants to have fun, but also everybody knows that everybody has to start somewhere. So don't be too upset if you can't afford the nicest thing. Don't be too upset if you don't know how to sew. There's all kinds of people at your first event that are most likely going to be able to sit there and say, hey, do you need this thing? Well, here's a spare of mine. You can have it. Or at least borrow it. So you can do that kind of stuff. Yeah, so things to expect at your first event. Be prepared to feel like an outcast, but you're really not. It's a very close-knit, welcoming community. Because if you're not a welcoming community, then you don't really have much of a community. So you need to work on that, right? So be prepared to say yes. Because there's going to be a lot of scary things, there's going to be a lot of sketchy stuff going on that you might think is a trap, or is very obviously a trap, but you're going to be pretty bored just sitting in the tavern or sitting in your cabin twiddling your thumbs all weekend. You're going to need to go out and say yes to something. So be prepared to just say yes and roll with the punches. If you die, you die. If you get robbed, you get robbed. But just be careful, be creative, and think carefully about what you do. Yeah, that's basically that. Some things to keep in mind: bring extra socks. Everybody says that. I don't know why, but do it. Of course, bring whatever you're going to bring camping if you're going to be going to a normal weekend-long campaign LARP, because you're pretty much going to be in a setting like this. You're going to have cabins somewhere, you're going to have things going on, but there may or may not be bathrooms, so bring baby wipes. Baby wipes can be used for cleaning makeup, they can be used for cleaning dirt, they can be used for cleaning just about everything. If you're good enough to clean fecal matter and things like that from a baby's bottom, they're good enough to clean your hands, good enough to clean your face, and good enough for a sponge bath, so that way you don't feel funky. Also, bring your money, because you're probably going to need to pay for food, you're probably going to need to pay for admission. Obviously, bring your kit, bring your weapons if you have any. If not, try and ask around on the Facebook page or forums or whatever your particular LARP in mind has. You can always check with them, and they can probably help you. Sleeping bag, obviously, because you're probably going to be sleeping overnight. And that's pretty much it as far as what you absolutely have to bring with you. Flashlight's handy. Lighter, knife, things like that. Pretty good to have. So, finding a LARP, there's all kinds of different resources out there. You can use, let's see here, there's LARPing.org. For example, they usually have a nice database that's fairly up to date. It's got basically just, you search whatever area that you're in. Say, I'm in Newark, Ohio, so you would look for LARPs near Newark, Ohio. On Google, for example, you can use Google. So yeah, Google, LARPs near, insert whatever town or city you live in. You can also use LARPing.org, their database. You can also kind of sort through that based on what genre you want. So if you're specifically after one that's family and disability friendly, if you're specifically after one that is welcoming of steampunk themes or medieval themes, or just one that's futuristic, you can find those. However, you may not find those in your specific area, so be prepared to travel. My LARP is one that's got kind of a database going on. There's all kinds of resources, Facebook pages, things like that. You can search Facebook, Google, things like that, no problem. However, you can also usually find ads for LARP groups and just for LARPs in general, or even just see if anybody knows anything at like your local comic shops or gaming shops or anything like that. They might be able to tell you, say, hey, yeah, we've had somebody come in and say that they've got a game going on every Saturday at the park across town, or something like that. So, be mindful of that. Be mindful that some LARPs are 18 plus, so if you're not 18, or you say you have a younger sibling or other relative or friend or something that wants to come, try and check in with that LARP first and see if you or they can come. As long as the people in the game are welcoming, then it doesn't really matter what you are in real life. If you're man, woman, intersex, anything like that, gay, straight, bi, if you have disabilities, if you're not, whatever, as long as the community is okay, then you can be whatever you want. If the community is not okay, find another group. Pretty simple. But anyway, I'm in charge of Gisido. It's a group that's here in Central Ohio. It's a fantasy LARP with steampunk elements, so it's mostly medieval, Renaissance sort of period, but then we also include Victorian themes and steampunk technology. We've got bows and arrows, as my character uses, but we've also got guns and swords and magic and poison gases and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So if that's your fancy, check out GisidoLARP.com. If it's not, you can always go to Google and find something yourself, or go look on Facebook, or ask your local D&D group, or whatever. Either way, I'm Camryn. Happy LARPing.